Okay, so welcome everybody to our class today. Today, Rick and I are going to be talking about the seller process. And there are a lot of slides today. And what we are going to do is put this process on a sheet and put it on Workplace so that you'll be able to look at it. I also want to mention, I hope that you got the message yesterday about the pre-listing interview sheet that is also posted on Workplace. So all of these are going to be available to you. So today we're going to just kind of walk through the process. And then at the end, we'll take some time for some questions. I also want to say, if you've been through a Ninja program, a Ninja installation, it is one of the best seller processes I've ever seen. So a lot of this is coming right from Ninja. I think this is just one of the best parts of their program, and I just really want to acknowledge that. So we just want to talk about the importance of a process. Whether you're dealing with somebody that you've sold them 8 or 10 houses, or this is a very first time somebody has purchased, really following your process is really important, because it shows, for one thing, a lot of professionalism, that you're following with anybody, you're following this process. And for you, it helps keep you in a rhythm when you're going through a listing presentation or getting a listing. So following a process is really important.
And it's super common for agents to wing it. I'm the number one offender of that. You know, I'm always winging it. It'll be great. I got this. I know this neighborhood, whatever, or I know these people. And like Kevin said, things get left out and they don't get the process, and it could be a problem, you know, down the road as well.
That's right. So before we get into the actual process, we just want to talk through a couple of things that are important for you to have in your mind as you're going through it. So when you're going, it's so easy as an agent to want to control what's going on in the process. But there are 4 really important things that the seller has complete control over, or needs to feel that they have complete control over. The price of the property, and that's a negotiation thing that the agent and the seller will come to that agreement of what the price is. The condition of the property, and that is what it needs to look like. And that, again, is where we have to help drive them to where they need to be potentially in showing the property. They're going to need to make the property available for us to see, for people to see. So that's something that they're going to be in control of. And then also accepting a contract. When we get the contract, they're the one that will say yes or no. So the next part are some confusing things that come up. And I know we all have seen this, especially with companies like Zillow and Redfin. People will come to you and say, my property is worth this. And my response to that is usually, Zillow has not walked through your house. Redfin has not walked through your house. They've got an algorithm that they're using. So people will get confused about price, their personal expectations. I love this house. This is how it feels to me. I've made it exactly like I want it to be. List price of other houses nearby that maybe are in a different condition than theirs. What other agents might suggest will come up. And then also friends will always have an opinion on price. So we have to provide clarity from the very start with our clients about what's the schedule going to look like? How do we want to market? What days are we going to be available for showings? This one I love. What are the odds that we can even sell your house? That one kind of puts a seller in a place that they think, well, of course this is going to sell. So when you say, what are the odds of selling? It puts them to a place that they kind of question, oh, okay, I need to think about how we're going to do this. And another thing is to allow the seller to look at the property and think, how does this look through buyer's eyes? How does the buyer look at this house, and what will they think about pricing the house and the place that what the house looks like? And then we have to use facts, and facts about pricing come through our CMA and how we present that to the seller. So now we're going to get into the process. So the first thing, and this is what I asked you to take a look at yesterday or today, or have in front of you, the pre-listing interview. This has been a game changer for me, I have to admit. And I use this with every single listing that I go into. I sold a house a couple of years ago. It was a good friend of mine. I've been in his house 1,000 times. I had been in his house 2 days before, but I still went through every single question as I did my pre-listing interview. And he had mentioned that he really, appreciated the fact that I was being thorough with it, but it really helps you have every piece of information that you need before you start going through the process of putting a listing agreement together. So once you have that meeting, let me go back to that slide. Once you go through that meeting, you're going to go through three things. You're going to follow the script with every buyer. You're going to set a time to drop off a seller guide, and you want to do that before a walkthrough. And then you're going to set the date that you're going to go and walk through the property. So this seller guide is really fluff. We don't want to put any information in about the property or what we think the price should be. It's very general. And what it's doing, it's giving them information about you and your firm. It's going to give them, you want to put in some facts about what's going on in the local market. And then you want to put in a copy of a completed listing agreement with no price, but you want to make sure that you have your commission in there as whatever your price is. For me, in my market, it's 3%. Put that in, because then they see it and they just assume that that's what it is. Later down the line, they may ask for you to reduce it, but put in what it is, and then you have a starting point for that negotiation. You just want to drop this off at their house. They don't have to be there. You can put it in their mailbox, whatever. But what it's doing is it's teeing you up to be somebody who is being proactive and excited about coming to see their property for the listing appointment. So as we go through the property and we do the walkthrough, we have 4 goals that we want to have during that time. We want to create rapport with them. If we know them, that obviously will have already been taken care of, but we want to create some kind of a comfort level of rapport. We want to review the pre-listing interview questions and see if they have anything to add to what we talked about. We want to qualify the seller. If we don't know the seller, we want to kind of decide, is this person really going to sell? Are they going to be reasonable? Is this somebody that I want to work with? And we also have to qualify the house to see what needs to happen to the home in order to prepare it for market. Rick?
Well, I love this slide. Be on time. It's very simple, obviously, but it is a big deal to show up on time. And I'm shocked at how often agents don't show up on time. And there's this kind of franticness, and I'm sorry, and I had the thing, and da 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 da. And it's just not a good way to start off what is going to be, kind of a really important meeting. And showing them that you're serious and you have the ability to show up on time and have a process is a big deal.
I always try to be in my car in front of the house 5 minutes before, so I can be knocking on the door exactly when I have the appointment.
Exactly.
So here are some questions during the walkthrough that we want to talk about. Actually, these are the things that we want to talk about. Sorry, when we're walking through the house. So now this is the list of things that I mentioned that we have just a lot of words here, a lot of questions, but they're important. So we will post all of this information on Workplace so that you can print this and have it with you as you're going through the house. So you want to know how many properties they've sold in the past, and this is helping to kind of gauge what their experience has been. And if they have sold a property, you want to ask them when the last sale was. So you want to know how fresh it's been since they've been through this process. And now we want to get into finding out how that process went. So we're going to ask them some questions that and you maybe remember this from the buyer presentation. We talked about, if you could wave your magic wand, what if you had the perfect situation, what would that look like? So going through these questions, we're kind of getting to that point that we want to know, what is your expectation?
And if I could just chime in here,
of course,
the second or third slide, we talked about what the seller needs to feel like they're in control of. And the feel part is really the most important part of that sentence. We are the ones that really know what's going on. They think they know what's going on, and it's our job to help them come to their own right conclusion. And the way we do that is by asking these questions, because that helps us get to what their motivation is and what helps them feel like we are their advocate and we're going to be helpful to them and they can trust us and all that. And it also helps us understand what is important to them so that we can make sure that we're taking care of what is important to them. And so that's what there's a whole series of questions here, but this is kind of our guide down to where you get to the more difficult conversations. To me, and we'll talk about this a little bit, but the elephant in the room is, what's your commission? What's the price of the house? These are the two things that we're leading to. And those conversations are way more easy to have when you've done all of these things and you've uncovered all of this information that these questions lead to.
That's right. Now, here's another important thing. When you're now at this point, you're just kind of sitting down and talking. So it's really important that you take notes. When they're telling you about what they expect or what the best situation would be for them, take note of that, because as you are writing these notes down, their perception is they're noticing that you are taking this to heart, and it's something that you might want to repeat back what they say. And these are things to do with any type of situation that you're in. Here, listening to what they're saying and then repeating what you heard just to make sure that you have it right. So here we're asking them their motivation behind selling, and then we want to find out where they're going and when do they need to be there, so that these are all things when we start talking about pricing. If they say, we need to be in Cleveland in 4 weeks, then we need to price accordingly. So all of these things are going to come together as we start our conversation with them. So we want to know where they're going to be going. Will you need help finding that house? I have colleagues in Cleveland that I can connect you with. So it's a way to get a referral going. How soon do you need to be there? And then ask them if they've had an opportunity to look through the information that you left behind in the seller guide. And if they have, great. Do you have any questions? If you haven't, just briefly go through that information with them. Now it's time to actually walk through the property and have them show you things. So there are two things that we want to talk about in this place. This first one, I think, is a perfect way to really help a seller understand that we may need to make some changes. So the first one is you determine what is going to be included in the sale. So you say something like, are we going to be pricing the property with this carpet, this ratty carpet, ripped up carpet that you have right now? Or are we going to be replacing that? Now, obviously, are we going to price it with this carpet, or are we going to replace it? So the whole idea is it's putting in their head that what they do, the price is going to matter. Are we going to repaint these pea green walls, or are we going to price it like this? And then the question comes up, what do you mean? This is a beautiful green. And then you get into the conversation, we want to kind of neutralize everything. We want people to be, visualizing what it's going to look like with their things in here. So if you provide a home that has a little bit more of a neutral palette, it's going to be easier for somebody to see that.
The other thing I like to just add into that is that this is a great opportunity to talk about the ratio of what you can expect. When I'm suggesting that you do this, I'm expecting you to get 3 times your money back, or 5 times your money back, or 10 times your money back, whatever it is. And I'm not expecting you just to do it to make the sale easier. I'm not expecting you to do it just for the sake of doing it. There's a return for you. In other words, we always want to be talking about what's in it for them to take this action. This is a great opportunity to have that conversation.
And pre-packing is another thing. It's why don't we start moving out, start getting some things together. Maybe they have a collection of antique dolls, that are on a whole wall in the living room. And it's, why not, let's start, we don't want people that might, take them off the shelf or break them or whatever. Why don't we just start packing these things away now? And then it's going to be that much easier as we actually start moving. Another great question to ask is, if you were to stay in this home for another 5 years, is there anything you'd change? And that opens up that whole conversation again, that helps with pricing, because they may say, well, I probably would replace my kitchen countertop because it's kind of messed up, or I might consider repainting this room or that room. So all of those things help to kind of put them in the mindset of what the house needs to look like in order to sell. Okay, now we've walked through the house. Now we're going to sit back down with our client and start asking some questions. And again, we're going to take notes because we want them to see that we're serious about the information that they're giving us. So we want to ask the seller if they feel, based on the information that we provided, that you are qualified to be their agent. Now, again, this is probably going to be with somebody that you've met for the very first time. If you've sold houses for this person before, this probably is not going to be an issue. So a lot of the questions that we're going to be asking are somebody that is brand new to us. So if yes, then you say, great, would you like for me to handle the sale for you? If they say, well, yes, but then before you go on, you ask them questions about their house. So you ask them what their concerns are. You really kind of get to that point that they say, yes, you are qualified to sell my house.
These are simple, just being curious questions. That's what we're trying to get to. Do not be afraid to be curious. Nobody minds about being curious.
That's right. Absolutely. So if you are feeling like the seller really isn't able to make up their mind on using you or not, this little trick can help put them in a frame of mind that there are choices here. So you kind of say one of three things can happen here. After I answer the questions that we've been talking about, you will decide to hire me. Or you might decide that I'm not a good fit for you. And so you may choose not to hire me. And then the important one is, I might feel that I can't help you achieve all of your goals. And I have a responsibility to tell you that I may not be able to take the listing. So it's putting you into that place of power that you can also say, no, this isn't going, I don't think that this is going to work for me. And sometimes saying that to a seller is going to flip their mind a little bit, that they're going to start asking more questions, and hopefully that it's going to be a place that you're going to be able to take the listing and sell the listing. So you ask permission, shall we proceed, and see where we are.
So, and you might be sitting there going, wait a minute, we haven't talked about price. We haven't talked about commission. We haven't talked about, and that's exactly right. We know that there's more questions. They probably are not, I mean, they might go, yeah, you sound great. Yep, we'll hire you. And they don't care, but they also probably might have questions about price, commission, or other things. How are you going to market the property? What do you do? And so forth. Those questions are going to be uncovered here, and we're going to go through that. But we want to have that kind of pre-closing question first, to kind of see where we're at, to gauge how things are going within the conversation.
That's exactly right. So what we also want to do is we want to review the idea of supply and demand. In my market right now, we have very little inventory and we have lots of buyers. So the seller's in a perfect place. We've been here for a while, but there have been days that we've got all kinds of properties on the market and not as many buyers. So it really is looking at what is the current market that we're looking at for this property. Then we get into the question, are you willing to list your home at a fair market value? And a lot of times they'll say, well, what does that mean? And it's just determining how much a buyer is willing to pay based on what the choices are that they have. So talking about that gets them into the frame of mind of fair market value. And I know that all of you have dealt with buyers that think that their home is worth this, and it's really more like this. So it's really kind of getting them into that idea of what fair market value is. Then if you brought comparables for the home, and this is where we can do one of two different things. If you are feeling like the information that you have is going to work with where you are, and you want to review the comparables that you've brought with you, then pull them out and you can kind of talk through the comparables for the neighborhood. If you feel that you found something in the house that you weren't quite sure of, you may want to take this to another meeting and say, at this point, I think what I want to do is to look at, now that I've seen your home, I want to review the comparables and I want to look at the pricing that I'm going to suggest for the home. So there are a couple of things that you can do at this point.
Yeah, let me just say that for me, this is this letter K question, based on current market conditions. Where do you feel like we should price the house? Some version of that question is going to really be helpful, and a lot of us don't even ask the clients that question. There's a fear. You go, well, they're not going to tell us or whatever. I think it's totally okay to ask, what are they thinking? Do they have a price in mind? What are you hoping that we sell the house for? Some version of that question. If their number lines up with yours, then great, proceed accordingly. If theirs is much higher, which sometimes that happens, and you are not feeling like, you know what, I totally know this neighborhood, these CMAs, I did exactly the right comps, and there wasn't anything unknown, like they remodeled the kitchen and I didn't figure that into the equation, or they added a room that I didn't know about or whatever. I think it's totally okay to go, here's what I brought with me, but now that I've seen the house, I want to go back. I want to study this a little bit further, and then let's meet again to solidify a price. You don't have to do any of that stuff if you are already agreeing on a price, is the point.
That's right. Another question, and again, this has to do with pricing. If they're in their mind, they're pricing in too high or expecting too much. The question is, do you feel that at that price, we're going to be able to get you where you need to be on time? And if that's not the case, what's your plan B? So if you're not able to get the price that you must have in the time that you must have it, what's going to happen? So this is helping them kind of look logically at what the next steps are. So now if we're moving forward with a contract, if we've come up with a price, this is where we're presenting our pricing strategy. And again, this is part of the discussion. I think that this is what would happen if you do your comparables and you come back and you're having the meeting with them with the price. In your head, you need to have your walkaway price. You need to have the price that you are not buying a listing, that you have a listing that you are going to sell. And at this point, you need to have a walk away price. You don't want to just fold everything up and walk out, but you want to know where your limit's going to be. So it's important to have that in your head. If you agree, if you've gone through your comparables and you've agreed to everything and you have the listing agreement with you, you can sign the listing at this point if all the details are agreed upon. And then you talk with them about next steps, doing inspections, disclosures, etc. So for homework, this is what we'd love for you to do. In our little groups that we have together, go through, role play the pre-listing interview. The questions are extremely easy to get through, but just walking through it once, doing one quick role play, I think makes us a lot more comfortable when we are actually doing it with a client. And then what I love to do with groups is I love to talk through objections with accountability partners, because we've all been in the business long enough that we know what questions come up. And what I love about having our groups is that we can kind of talk through tricks like, oh, this is how I have a lot of success answering that objection. So this is how we want to use our accountability groups and partners in a positive way.